I love this in Excel. You can have an output table based on some criteria and other features defined in this based on your source data over here. So for example, here I can change from that one to be that one, and then it can give me a different set of outputs. I can have a minimum and maximum units or an end date. I can say that this is 1st of February, and then I have a different output here. Or I can even just change my columns. So let's say that I want 5 and then 1 and then 4 and then 2 and then 8, like that. I can reorder my columns based on my criteria there. I can also say I want it sorted based on the 3rd column, and that can be in ascending order like this. And it can give me the outputs here. Here I have the number of rows, the totals, etc. You can even have a description contained. So if this says, for example, break even, like that, then it can reduce the rows based on that. You can have drop downs, you can have dates, minimum, maximum, pretty much anything you want. So I'm David Ben-Ayman. I have tons of videos on Excel, PowerPoint, Google Sheets, Zoom, Teams, Power BI. If you're using Tech of the Workplace, then chances are I'm covering on my channel. I love talking about the new stuff. In particular, here we have the use of some brand new functions that have just been released, especially to the semi-annual channel. So for example, TEXTSPLIT that we're going to do, we're going to use also CHOOSECOLS, and VSTACK. So these formulas are pretty complex, but you only have to build this once for each document, and I think it's an absolute value add. So I'm going to go through how to do this step by step for you. So I'm going to duplicate this, hold down Control and drag it, and that will duplicate it. I'm going to get rid of all of the formulas and this one here as well. And now we're going to get started. So for starters, it's good to create some lists here. These are going to be referenced for your drop downs so that you can't enter the wrong things in the cells. So for example, here for dates, I do recommend going to the data tab and choosing data validation. And then here we're going to have date and then put in some reasonable parameters, usually greater than, and a start date is enough. And then for these kind of names, we're going to go to data and then choose this one and choose a list here between and select. Usually I like to leave a blank or two at the end just in case it needs to grow, but we're going to create these lists as need be. So to create them, I'm going to delete that. So using two functions. So the unique function will give you in multiple rows the unique values of something. So if I select this, close my brackets, this is going to be the list of names, but I can go one step further and sort them from A to Z by using equal sort around that, and then it's much easier for the people to see as they drag it down to see that it is logically based on that. I did the same for cost. Note for numbers, usually what I would do is I would do data validation that is a whole number greater than or equal to something, but if you want to have, for example, a list like this, you can link them with a list as well. So if there's something that is a finite number of things, like here, items sold. And then description contained, this one, we don't have a data validation list because people want to be able to write anything they want. Then we have our final criteria. This is going to be in formula output only. We have OR as well, so you can choose 2 or maybe even more names from the name list. And then here I have a way that people can type out the columns that they want in the order that they want. If they forget to do a space, that's okay, it still works. And then here is just a data validation list of numbers that are greater than or equal to 1. This is ascending, descending. So we're going to write the formulas next. Equals if, and I'm going to say this entire column is greater than or equal to this cell. And then say if yes, if true 1, if false 0. Like that, 1s and 0s, that's what I'm going to end up with. And it's going to return it in this. This is using dynamic arrays. Note that if you have some text here, then it's going to give me the spell error. Dynamic arrays is available if you have Office 2021 or 365. But the things I'm going to show you, some of these formulas are only in Office 365. So in order to take this a little bit further, we're actually going to put it in a single cell. Otherwise, it disrupts things. And we're going to use ARRAYTOTEXT. ARRAYTOTEXT just takes any array, so any sequence of cells, and then close your brackets, and then it puts them in one cell. That's a comma-separated list like this. You could do this as well with another function called TextJoin, but I find that this is a lot simpler to write, so we're going to be using that. But the issue comes out if I have a blank cell. In this case, it's going to give me the right things, but in the next case, it's not quite going to work. So just to show you, I'm going to cut and paste that, but it's going to compare that. This is end date, so it's going to be less than or equal to that, and then it's going to work. But if I have blank here, it's going to give me zeros only. And our end goal is we're going to actually multiply all of these vectors together. And if we have zeros, then anything multiplied by 0 is going to give us a 0, so that won't cut it. We need to have a fail-safe for what happens if it is blank. So I'm going to make my formula bar over multiple rows by dragging that down, and then I'm going to press Alt Return here. You can use new lines and spaces and formulas, that doesn't matter, it will still give you the right thing, but this will make it a little bit easier for us to see what's going on. So in this formula, I'm going to write equals if, and then I'm going to say if this entire column is greater than or equal to this cell, then return a 1 if true, a 0 if false. And then it will return 1, so this data is after that, this data is after that, this data is not, that's why this third one is a 0. But I'm going to actually go a little bit further because this is quite impractical, that it grows over all of those cells. I'm going to put this in a single cell by using a function called ARRAYTOTEXT. ARRAYTOTEXT will take many cells inside one cell like that. It is something you can also do with TextJoin, but in this case it is fine like that. I'm going to actually press F4 for the blue column, so I can just drag that down and be a little bit easier like this. And then the second one I'm going to write is less than or equal to. So that's just going to give me zeros if it's left blank, which is actually not what I want, because all of these need to be optional whether someone does it. So eventually what's going to happen is it's going to do a vector multiplication of all of the first instances multiplied, and then return the values where the end result is going to be 1. So if these are multiplied by always zeros, then it's just not going to work. So I want this one to be showing me 1s if this is left blank. If this one's left blank, it is showing me 1s, because that's going to be 0, but I need that baked into every single assumption. So what I've done is I've extended the formula bar. It'll be easier to see this way. So I'm going to press Alt Enter and loads of spaces. In a formula, you can have spaces and new paragraphs. It doesn't really matter. So it's going to make it easier for you to enter this. So I'm going to do this in the first one. If this is equal to blank, speech marks, that's how you do blank in Excel, then return RANDARRAY of counter of all of this, close my brackets for counter, and then columns is going to be just brackets, don't need that, it is optional. Minimum is going to be 1, maximum is going to be 1, and integer is going to be true. Press tab for that. Close my brackets there, then a comma to go back here and close my final bracket. Do remember your F4s like this, and then drag it down. Then it's just going to show me 1s, unless, for example, 5th of January, some of them are going to be 0s. But the point is that I want it to show me 1s if that is left blank. Now, what does that function do, RANDARRAY? So if I do equals RANDARRAY for, say, 5 rows and no columns, and I'm going to do between 1 and 8, and integer is going to be true, then it's just going to be giving me this number of random numbers between my start and my end. Now, where I was tricky was I did start minimum 1, maximum 1, so it's just going to give me 1s, and it's going to be doing that for a total number of rows of count A of all of this. So however many rows there are, it's going to be doing it for that many rows. And then I'm doing ARRAYTOTEXT to convert that into one single cell. Now this is a dynamic array, so if you do have some text here, it's going to give you the spill error. All that means is that you need to delete the text that is stopping it from entering it in a certain way. So now I'm going to be dragging it down, and in these ones, I'm going to be saying equals, and I'm just going to drag these alongside there. And that is going to be showing me 1, the first row is correct, and then if I drag this one down, Solina is the second row. Yep, so that's worked quite well. So all I've done there is change the greater than or equal to just an equal to. This does have a drop-down list. We're going to do the OR one a little bit later, but let's do some other ones for min and max. So min and max are pretty similar if I copy and paste these two to the ones I had above, except here if I click in the cell, I'm going to be testing it to the units column, minimum and maximum, and drag that down, or Control D. And then this is just going to be doing it like that, less than or equal to. Perfect. That's because they're blank, but if I do, for example, 4 and 8, then we're going to have different parameters for each one here. This one is the same as the name one, so copy that one and paste that. That's just an equal to, but I do want to drag this to test it with the item sold over here. Make sure that they start and end in the same place, like that. Enter. And then description contains. So this one, you can't actually use an if, because if formulas are not able to deal with something that contains, it can only be equal to or numerical operator. So what I need to do is actually another function called the search function. So if I say equals search, this, comma, within here, then close my brackets, say, I would get values, 1s, 25s, like that. So it's the position that I found it. So 1 means the first term is break even, error means it hasn't found it, and 25 means it's on the 25th character. In reality, I just want to know 1s and 0s as to whether it exists or not. So if I do equals ISNUMBER, like that, and then close my brackets, then I'm going to get false and trues. So if I do equals if this one, and then I will do value of true is going to be 1, value of false is going to be 0, then I have more or less what I want. So I just need to wrap around the other thing that I had first for the blanks and the RANDARRAY, copy that, then in this one, I'm going to paste it like that. Alt-Enter, press all your spaces, and then close your brackets, and then you should get it showing you that way. So if I double click here, I'm going to drag this and make sure that I'm always referring to this one, and then I have it going there. However, one thing that you should be concerned about is that this will not give you the full range, the same count, if you are referring to a column that is an optional column. So for that, make sure that where you have your RANDARRAY and count, this is a required column that must be entered in all cases. Otherwise, it might give you a different set of things. And here, now it works great. If I do break even, it will show me only some of them. And if I do, for example, staff, then it will show me only one. So yeah, that is a useful one here. Next up, we're going to do this one. So here, we're going to just write equals and that one. This is equals and that one. And then this one, I'm going to write equals if this one equals DESC, then return -1, otherwise return 1. So this will cover instances when descending is chosen, that's -1. When ascending is, or when it's blank, it's also going to give you 1. So we've got all of these done now. I'm going to just include this first one, and then later in the video, we're going to add the OR criteria, because that is a little bit more complicated. So next we're going to do is we're going to have the final criteria, which is going to multiply all of these together. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break these again into cells and then multiply them together. So for example here, I can write equals TEXTSPLIT, great new function of, say, this one. And I want to split that by the row delimiter of a comma and a space. Close my brackets and I get these numbers here. And then I'm going to do equals the same, copy this, and then here I'm going to paste it, but I'm going to do it with the next one, and I get these numbers like that. And next I'm going to do equals these ones multiplied by these ones, and it's going to give me these numbers here. So here I have the zeros only where either of them are 0, like this one is a 0, all the other ones are out as need be. So I'm going to use this one, and note that you have this hashtag. Hash is whenever you refer to an array that by the start cell until however long that array goes, that is dynamic. That happened automatically, I didn't need to think about it. But the TEXTSPLIT function is a great tool to be able to split across multiple cells. I have another video where I talk about that and indeed about all of these dynamic array functions in more detail that I'll link to as well. So we're going to incorporate that when we multiply them together. So I'm going to say, for example, equals TEXTSPLIT of this one. It only works if you do it by row delimiter. It doesn't work if you do it by column delimiter. So I'm going to do equals that one multiplied by this one. And then again, TEXTSPLIT, that one, comma, comma, multiply by that. And then it will give me this spill array. But if I cut and paste it here, that will give me the answer there. So I'm going to keep going with all of these and put them into an array to text like I did before. But I'm going to skip in this video because otherwise it's just pretty boring. So I multiply them together and I'm going to do them in another array to text. Tab to lock that in, close my brackets at the end. And then I get all of these. In this case, they are zeros because there's nothing that overlaps. But if I delete certain criteria, then it is going to let it grow. All right, so next we're going to do the final table, but in that we're going to work step by step. The first step is going to be the filter criteria. So we're going to use equals filter, great new function. We're going to select all of the rows, excluding the headers. Well, it doesn't matter too much if you do it by accident. Then include, we're going to use TEXTSPLIT of this, and then press a comma, comma. Row delimiter we want is to be splitting it out by a comma. I know commas can be confusing because sometimes it goes to the next input of the function. Sometimes there's a delimiter that is in speech marks like that. And then we're going to close our brackets for TEXTSPLIT and close our brackets for the filter function. It doesn't work because this is stored as text, but if I do value around it, this will convert it into numbers and then it will work. Note a couple of things that we'll have to fix. So here, the dates you have to make them date format by either going here or using my favorite shortcut, which is Control-Shift-3. We'll make them into dates that look the same if you're opening this with a US computer or another computer that I really like. And this zero, we're going to have to replace that later on, but let's do this step by step. So now that we've got that, we're also going to add in a sort order. So we're going to have here this data, but it's going to be sorted by sort index is going to be this number and, or even this one here. And then my sort order is going to be this order here. That's going to be ascending, but if I change this to descending and then change this to column 2, we're going to see that the order is changing in this data. So that's there. Next, we're going to add the headers, and love this function, VSTACK. You can stack one array on top of another. So VSTACK, array number 1 is going to be this one, and then press a comma to go to array 2. Array 2 is going to be this one. And then close our brackets, then we get all of it like this. This is all the columns. And the last criteria thing we want to do, and this is a really big one for me, is the ability to choose the columns in the order. So for that, we have another function called CHOOSECOLS, where you have an array and then column number 1, number 2, number 3, etc. So for that, I'm going to do, again, TEXTSPLIT, and I'm going to have this, comma, column delimiter is going to be like that. I'm not going to do a space because a space, it can ignore it if need be, especially if you use value function around it. So close that there twice. It's going to give me a value error because I need to put this in a value function. Close your brackets and there you have it. And note that you have to change these back to not a date format if you want them, because any number can be stored as dates. So there we go. And now it is dynamic. So now if I change this to 7, 3, 1, 6, then it will show me in a different order. And here I can say that I want it to be 3 and ascending, or leave it blank. Again, you will have to change these depending on the dates. Dates are annoying. You can't, at the moment, get dynamic arrays to give you a built-in format, but I'm sure that will come with time. And then here you can add different criteria. So here I can say, for example, vate, and that will be just one row of data, but here if I delete this and this, it will be different rows of data. And we're going to see what to do where you have blanks to not show you those as zeros. Notice this is giving me a spill error because I need to expand over that. So to do that, I'm just going to take all of this and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to say if this equals speech marks equals blank, then return blank, otherwise return. I'm going to press Alt Enter. It's just going to be the same thing. Close my brackets, and then I have just gotten rid of all the blanks there. So note again your dates. You do want to change the number format of those. Control-Shift-3 is the best way to do that, in my opinion. If you want something that auto expands, the best way to do it is to convert this into a table. So if you go to Insert and Table, then this will auto expand based on the user selection. I love tables. They're really, really underused. It's one of my most watched videos, making them through auto coloring in Excel and all of the other benefits that it does here. You can have here a table name that you can give it. So source, and then whenever you refer to a column equals if this is equal to, and then if I refer to this column, then it will say source, which is what I gave the table name of, and then name column, and name will auto expand based on criteria. If you're not already using tables, you're definitely missing out. They are absolutely fantastic. They also give you loads of formatting tips that you can do built in without needing to change things, and they auto grow based on other things. So here is the formatting that's auto grown, etc. Great. All right, so how to do it with all criteria. So in this cell, I'm going to take all of this, I'm going to copy it, Control-C, I'm going to go here and paste it, and I'm just going to have that in one row, and then here I'm going to have this comma, enter, paste it again, plus even, I'm going to add them together. And in the second one, I'm going to refer to C20. So it's going to test, both are at C19 equals blank. This one is C20 equals blank. And I don't want to close the bracket there. I want to close it at the end. And then I have it showing like this. And this is really nice because look, Selena and James. So here it's 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. And then here it's the 1 is the fourth one. So now it just combines them. Wherever there is a 1 in either of these, it will put them in there. But we have a little bit of an issue because if this one is blank, then all of these are now showing me 1s. And then I get 1s and 2s, which I don't want because this will mean that it will show me for all the data, even though I only want to select one name. For this one, I'm going to say, keep this as is. But essentially, I want to say, well, if there's only one thing or nothing entered, then do something different. So I'm going to say, if count A of these cells, these two cells, close brackets, equals 2, then do this thing that I've said. Otherwise, do pretty much the same thing, Control-C, but instead of plus, I'm going to do multiplied by, which is what we had before. Accept my changes, hopefully that will work. Great, so now it is multiplying them. Yeah, so if I have only 1 or if I have 0, it is giving me 1s. If I have 1, it is giving me just the same as the original one. Perfect. And if this one is deleted and someone chose this second one, then it is giving me the right thing. And now, back in this one, or back in the total criteria, instead of the row number 19, I'm going to bring in from row number 21. And now it's going to work based on the two names, like that, rather than the other thing. Notice this is the one I had originally, this is the one I've just built now. So that is a whistle-stop tour. Note that in this final formula here, it does matter which way you do things. So you do need to do it in the order of CHOOSECOLS, then VSTACK, then sort, then filter. Otherwise, it might give you results. For example, if you decide to choose the columns before you do the filter, then it might not be able to test the columns that you've chosen. Or if you have decided to sort before you filter, then it might change the order of the columns that you're checking. So the ones and zeros refer to the post-sorted columns. So it does matter which way you choose. So that is a intense video, but once you build it as a one-off, I think this can really be game-changing. If you enjoyed it, then my name is David Van Eyman. Tons of videos on my channel about Excel, PowerPoint, Power BI, Google Sheets, Zoom, Teams. If you're using Tech of the Workplace, I'm covering on my channel. So check out my other videos, and I have loads on dynamic arrays like the ones that we have in here. If you are looking to do this in Google Sheets, then I have another video on Google Sheets where Google Sheets version is a lot easier because you can use the query function. So check that out as well. Thanks for watching.